Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 554th episode of the GeekVerse podcast. I'm Trav17, Trav Snell. I'm joined by...
I'm always ready for a prayer, Kirkland Patzer.
I'm the habanero Dilmas.
I am the sauce, is Taylor Field.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very... I guess I could say anticipated. I feel like it's like a grown anticipated, right? Because when we I fucked up. I forgot to re-release the Parasite retro. I just realized that because it's like a couple of years ago we reviewed Parasite, not when it came out, but after the fact. Me and Dylan had seen it, but these two. But that's what I mean. Like we had seen it, and like we like that, and then at one point we did Snowpiercer as well. That came up.
True.
So it's been like a slow incline for Bong Joon-ho's work as far as like getting on the GeekVerse radar. And then I feel like obviously pass in whether it's Twilight, Harry Potter, other stuff's been on their life. But, the Batman came out, second biggest episode of all time for GeekVerse. So slowly all these things have been assembling, and now we're here. It made our most anticipated movie. It didn't win. I can't remember who. I thought everyone but Taylor voted for it. Maybe I'm wrong. I think the patrons, they picked something else. I think we lost out on the Mickey 17 vote. But I know many of us are anticipating. I know many listeners are anticipating it. So we're going to get right into it. Dill Muss, obviously, as usual, non-spoiler. So if people are wondering if they should check it out or maybe they don't have time to, get to it in the theaters, whatever it may be, give us your overall thoughts of Mickey 17.
I absolutely love this movie. This is my favorite movie that I've watched in a long time. I absolutely love this thing. I had such a great time with it. There's so many ways, and it kind of surprised me a lot. From the trailers, I don't think I really knew what to expect from this movie other than like Pattinson's getting cloned and he's getting killed, and like that's kind of it. But there's so much more to this movie than that. I think right off the bat, I really love the way sci-fi is used in this, because there is some like larger fantastical sci-fi things that are happening, but it is very grounded at the same time. It actually reminded me a lot of my favorite author right now, Becky Chambers. I read like every one of her books last year, and she does a lot of space things. And the most recent book of hers I read is called To Be Taught If Fortunate, and in that there's like people going to like a snowy planet to colonize it, and there's a lot of like similarities to what's happening in this movie. So I just felt like it was taking some of those things and kind of bringing it to life, the book that I read last year. So really love the sci-fi in this, because it's grounded, but then still like is pretty crazy and zany and over the top at times. I think it finds a nice balance there, and I feel like the whole movie is kind of like that, where there is tons of serious, like big topics as Bong Joon-ho. So there's a ton of, big social commentary stuff. And I feel like in this, he's almost throwing in like everything you could possibly have in terms of social commentary. And honestly, I don't know if any of it's a super nuanced take, but there's just a lot in there, and there's a lot to reflect on. And it's fun looking back at like comparisons to Parasite or Snowpiercer. There's a lot of comparisons there in terms of obviously themes that he likes to visit or talk about with his work. That kind of happens either in the background or as like the core plot. So all that stuff's really good, but it balances that, intense societal stuff with just like, this is the funniest movie I've seen in a long time. It was cracking me up the whole way through. This movie, I think, has like the single funniest foreshadow I've ever seen in any movie ever, or callback. I don't know. It's one of the two. I mean, they're kind of the two sides of the same coin. So I'm excited to break down some of those things. And then just like the acting is great. I think what surprised me is obviously Pattinson playing all these different characters, versions of himself. That was going to be fun. And it was. It is great. He does, different little versions of it, which is great. But then I was surprised at how much I like just the whole cast. Whether it's like a smaller character like Steven Yeun's character, who's not... he's got like plot stuff going on, but I just love everything he's doing in here. Everyone is like perfectly cast for their role they're in. And yeah, I just had an absolutely grand old time with this movie. I loved it from start to finish. And go to the theater right now and watch it. That is my recommendation for everyone listening. Love
There
it.
you go, everyone. Mr. Patzer.
Yeah, I was really excited about this one. Big fan of just the previous works of the director. I feel like they're very unique and like impressive original films that just have a lot more than just sometimes a funny story. Sometimes, it's a lot deeper than that. It just seems like there's so much in these films. So I think I had that in the back of my mind going into it, like to expect that. But I really did not prep myself for for what I was getting into here in the most positive sense possible. I was, fortunate Shay came with me on this one. I really had no idea how she was gonna feel. She watched Parasite with me. She wasn't a big fan of that movie, but she liked Robert Pattinson, and I didn't show her the trailer at all. So she went in very blind, and she had a fantastic time with it. She was laughing her butt off, and yeah, this is a very funny movie, way funnier than I was expecting it to be. But there's also just a lot of good juice in there. Pun not intended, but there's also juice in there. Yeah, sauce. I truly had a fantastic time with this movie. It's definitely not a perfect movie. I think I do have some grievances with certain things that happen, but I think my overall love for it just is able to it's able to look past a lot of that, but it will maybe hinder my score overall by the time we get to the end, just when we unpack some of those things. But Pattinson, man, he is so fantastic in this movie. I remember like his voice from the trailers, and I I think I had that in the back of my mind, but once I heard it like right away at the start of the film, I'm like, oh right, this is like a very different type of voice that he's done in anything before. And he was just phenomenal throughout the whole thing. Well, can't wait to get into it and talk about that. But I will say something that really surprised me and in another really fantastic sense is I feel like this movie, specifically around certain creatures in it, are like heavily inspired by a Studio Ghibli film called Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind, which I highly recommend. It's a 1984 film, and it actually is like eerily similar to what's happening around certain creatures in this film, and it's like the design is the exact same. So it was hard for me to like look past that. But I love that film so much, and I think that they're able to not just copy the same thing, but like use that and then tell his own story in this movie. So yeah, I was really, really just fond of that because I love that movie. And yeah, no, this was a really, really fun time, and highly, highly recommended to go see this in theaters as well. And this was like pretty busy in my theater, which I was kind of surprised about. I think early in the week, this was playing on the big theater on the west side, which I guess there's not a lot of stuff out, but I just kind of assumed it was going to be a little bit more of a niche film. But yeah, there was quite a few people in my theater, and pretty loud. Like people were having a good time with it. They're giggling at certain characters in here. Mark Ruffalo is just like in this certain era of acting right now that I'm just loving.
This and Poor Things,
yeah, exactly. It very much reminded me of that, and I loved.
He's gonna plead for them to kill him off in Secret Wars and just keep doing these type of roles, because like I
think he's having a blast.
Bruce Banner ever again. Like we know what we can do. We've seen the power. It's like Euphoria season 2 of Zendaya. It's like, hey, you can't be MJ Murray. Like we've seen what you can do. Like it's just Ruffalo's having a great time, I imagine. So.
Absolutely, I really like Tony Collette too, and in this role. But yeah, overall, great time with this one, and highly recommend it.
Mr. Field.
Yeah, I think you guys land on some pretty solid points, and I'm gonna reiterate what you guys have said. It's a dang good movie. I had a lot of fun with it. It was really, really enjoyable, and it was not something I was expecting. I think I was kind of going in with one kind of linear narrative, like, okay, this is how it's gonna go down from what I'm aware of and what I've deduced from the trailers, and they just they have a baseline of that, but then they have so much more layered on top, and so many other things that are just unfolding in the storyline, and it's just got a really humbling foundation to it. And I felt like you really get attached to Mickey. I'll say you get to attach to that character, and you get to be really connected with this story that's unfolding with him, and I really like that. It was just a really nice, wholesome point A to point B kind of storyline. For me though, and we'll talk more throughout it, my only con was I feel like when we got to that third act, it just felt long, and that was the first time it kind of pulled me out of it, because I thought like I started to feel like, okay, things have started to simmer down and wrap up, and then it just felt like, oh, we're still going in an extended part. And I can't remember what that movie was called. Chris Pratt did it. It was an Amazon movie with the time travel in the future and the aliens. Tomorrow War, yeah. And I'm not saying it's exactly like that bad, but it just felt like you get to this point of the movie and it's like, oh, this feels like there's more going on now, and it's like, okay, that is worse though in the sense, but that feeling was residually residing here slightly for me.
Ooh.
But again,
Hell yeah.
I still enjoy this movie. I think it's a lot of fun, and I reiterate what you guys say: go see it in the theaters, because it's a sci-fi movie, and I think sci-fi movies deserve to be seen on the big screen because there's a lot of really cool effects. The visuals look great in this. It's like the aliens or the spaceships, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and the humor really worked for me. Like you mentioned there, Mark Ruffalo. Holy smokes! I'm sure we obviously discussed who was in this movie, but that completely was absent from my mind. And so when he just popped in and his character, I was dying laughing at all the crazy shit he was just doing, just things in his mannerisms in the background. Like, oh, I was laughing my head off just with him. He's so zany, and yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So I'm looking forward to rewatching this because I feel like this is something that you could really miss a lot of things on the first viewing, and there's other things you're going to spot or notice the second time around because it feels very detailed, and this world that they've created, even though it's very small. I imagine like even the set was probably not really big because I feel like most of this movie is really, not spoiling it, on a spaceship. But I just feel like there's so much detail and so much that you could really overlook that it's a really cool world that they created here. And I don't ever need like as much as I'm sure some people would love it, a sequel or anything like that. This just being
Mickey
like a
19.
great one-off. Yeah, Mickey 19. This is just a great one-off original story, and it's really really cool, really refreshing and rejuvenating to see something like this on the big screen.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna get a sequel. I think you're fine. Bong's done no sequels to his
A
movies.
Again,
prequel,
Parasite
a prequel.
2 next,
There-
and then he's gonna just do sequels to all of his films.
Yeah, he says they're still remaking Parasite into an American version, which I'm still kind of like,
Well,
I don't-
Snowpiercer they did a show of, right?
They did
So
do a
that's
show that, yeah,
sequelish.
they did that, yeah, and then I think like the rumor was Mark Ruffalo was going to play the dad in the Parasite remake, which makes sense after working together here. I'm probably sure they had a good time. So, but that's when we're
Yeah.
like, do we need this? I don't know, but would I watch it? Probably, because Mark Ruffalo is great. So it all depends on the casting, right? But yeah, what these guys said, yeah, definitely go out and see it. You know, we talk about this all the time. Newscasts always make this point where you'll hear anybody, your friends, family, coworkers, oh, they just don't make any original movies anymore. Yeah, they do. Just people just don't go out and see them. So this is as original as it gets. Like I'd say, like in our almost near 10-year span when and maybe that's a good conversation. Maybe that's a bread and butter. Talk about like what are the most original movies and games and shows that have happened in this decade, because I feel like in the movie sphere, this probably deserves a spot somewhere in the top 10 for just original concept and done very well. There's lots of great concepts out there, but then we've been like, like Tomorrow War, stuff like that. It's a fine movie. Yeah, so go watch it. Yeah, same thing as these guys. I hate to echo them. I really, really enjoyed it as well. I think everybody's like Pat. Everyone gets to like shine at different moments. It is Passon's movie, and he shines for the most part. But like Ruffalo and Collette, they're fantastic. Naomi Eki, who like I really am a big fan of. I would have not thought, and this what comes down to directing and script writing. Her, whatever character she was in episode 9, never thought of her ever again after I saw that movie. But between this,
Sorry, did she play Nasha? Is that who the character?
yeah,
is?
Nasha, yeah, Naomi
Okay.
Eki, right? I think I'm saying right. Or
I
am
don't know who.
confused
I
her-
didn't know her.
Okay,
name,
so that's
I was
Asha.
just
I think
confirming,
I'll
so.
double check. I hope I'm not saying a wrong actor's name. I think that's her. But between this and Blink Twice last year, she's fantastic. Like she's somebody that now when she gets cast and stuff, I'm like, oh, my hype level's gone up. And everyone comes to play here. Some great visuals. It is like even what Taylor said. Yeah, it's a smaller set, but that's why this movie still costs $180 because it feels real, and that's what's nice. Even some of these CGI creatures and things like that, it's like they do their best. Naomi Eki. Okay, what did I say? Did I get it right?
I think you said that.
Okay,
You're
sure.
good.
job.
But anyways, Naomi, great job. Can't wait to see more stuff. Yeah, like even that stuff, it's like we see so many CGI things in primarily the stuff we review that when you get a little numb, and then it's like, okay, there's levels of bad. So obviously there's always going to be kind of like a Silicon Valley of, okay, that's not real. He's moving this thing. That's not real. But it's pretty dang good, especially from the stuff we get nowadays. I'm not going to say slop, and lots of it's because studios rush these effects. It's not that the effects artists are bad now. It's just that they don't get the time nor the money, right? So that's something that's nice here where it's not a franchise. It's not, hey, Bong, you got to get this out before, the chapter 8 comes out. Like, no, you can just put it out. Lots of social commentary. It's something, it's funny when we were talking about Daredevil earlier this week. It's something if you don't really like anything political, or if you're kind of tired of politics, this is like everything, every major issue that's happened in the last 5 to 6 years is in this movie. I think they do a very good job of, at times, it's almost parody level in a good way. Sometimes I say that as a bad way. No, this is where it's done well. So I think for the most part, that's all working well until I'm kind of somehow surprisingly with Taylor. The third act for me is a little long, could tighten up, and I think they didn't have the best. They didn't walk the tight bounce the best, because I feel like the rest of the movie, tightrope, not tight bounce, tightrope the best, because the act one, act two, I feel like the parody and comedy and the drama work together very, very well. Where I think in the third act they kind of clash at sometimes, because I feel like they're trying to get very serious on some things. There's also some scene choices where I'm just, oh, like this isn't working for me. Nothing ever reaches like the bad, or like it took it down a bunch of scores. It's just that was for me, as I think the pacing, editing was really good, and then the third act kind of felt like not a screeching halt, but it just felt like, oh, I realize I'm watching a movie now. Where the first act and second act, I'm just in for the adventure. But yeah, Pattinson, man, how far this guy has come to just being Cedric Diggory. And we already talked about the Batman, but it's just kind of funny. Like, wouldn't have thought that Edward Cullen, like one of my favorite actors working today. And yeah, great job. Bong is always just making great stuff. As far as the things I've seen, I think I would rank it fourth, because I've never fully seen one of his Korean films. There's one I've seen, I can't remember, it's about like a monster. I have to finish
Okja.
it. No. There's one that's just, I guess that isn't Korean. Sorry, that one's on Netflix. It's easy. This is like from the '90s or something that I
okay.
was watching, and then it went away on the streaming service, and I'm like, oh, I never finished it. But yeah, I think Parasite's like a god tier movie, and I think Snowpiercer I like a little bit better, but this is definitely one I will rewatch in the future. Don't know if I'm gonna rush to it, but yeah, great movie, and I'm excited to break it down. So, is there anything non-spoilers we want to say?
Soundtrack's fantastic. I think it could have been just like
Mm.
classic sci-fi for this, but I think it's much more playful. Once again, it's like that balance between tones that this movie is, of like the serious and then like the playful. So I really, really dug the soundtrack. I feel like it's used kind of sparingly, but I noticed it in several moments that it really stood out and just kind of elevated, made things a little bit more fantastical in a way. Really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm. Something you said there and something Taylor said earlier that I'm just going to shout now before I forget it is this movie does one of my favorite movie tropes is when it's technology we've never seen or technologies that's new hundreds of years in the future, but it looks old. You know, the first Star Wars, Blade Runner. Funny enough with passing the Batman, where Batman has this high-tech gear, has this stuff for Selena put in her eye, but it all looks like it's like broken and like the rusted and everything. I love that, where there's like, you know, minor spoilers, like a chainsaw, and you get to see how that works. And it's like, it's just like a few additions to make it something cool and different, but then it looks lived in. And that's my favorite type of sci-fi. Not saying I don't like the shiny, glossy. Yeah, there's places for that, but I love, just makes the world feel even more lived in. So appreciate those details. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to take our first ad break. So if you've not seen Mickey 17, go see it and then jump back. This review will be waiting here for you, just like all clones, and we'll be right back. And we are back. And before we get into spoilers, if you didn't want that ad break, head over to Patreon, support us there. You get episodes ad-free. You get exclusive episodes, all depending on the different tiers. There's multiple exclusive episodes. There's our call-in show. Get episodes early. There's retrospectives on there. There's tons of stuff. There's hundreds of hours of content on there that are just exclusive there that costs like about a cup of coffee. So we'd very much appreciate that, because that keeps the wheels, that keeps churning out the fake meat or whatever the clones, exactly. Like we can't do this just ourselves, so this is, I don't know what version we're on here, but no, we'd very much appreciate that. And if not, just, you know, head down below, join our YouTube, find a podcast description you like, Discord, lots of good stuff, and there's just always tons of things happening on the GeekVerse feed, so we very much appreciate that. I want to start with the voice, because I didn't want to say this. I didn't think it was a spoiler, but just in case, because you, Kirk, when you brought up the voice, I think it's like, okay, I remembered it, but the fact that he was narrating the whole movie, I think just really the first 20 minutes set it on. I'm like, oh man, like what a choice. And it's a great choice. And the good thing is it works. It's a goofy, silly voice, but sometimes that can almost take you out of it. But I think he probably did narrate the trailer, but with trailers you never know, right? Like that can just be for the audience to understand it. So I'm like, oh, he's going to be talking a lot throughout this, and it was a great choice. And yeah, that voice just man, just like kind of Weasley, little slimy loser guy, but almost made him charming as well too. So that's what
Oh
I
yeah,
appreciate about
he's
it.
like
So,
immediately rootable, which is so important
Yeah.
for the whole
Yeah.
premise of this, right?
He feels like a child at times, just like just just very innocent and like doesn't fully understand how the world works, but he's just so innocent in his actions and just thoughts and everything. But I like giggled as soon as I heard his voice because it is just so goofy compared to other. Well, I've just seen Robert Pattinson in things, and he's never had a voice anywhere near this. I found it just fantastic though for like the stark contrast between Mickey 18 when we get introduced to him because he's just like more of a normal voice, I guess, but just like a lot more
his Bruce Wayne voice was
rash.
coming out there a
Yeah,
little bit
when
he
he's
was
like giving him
threatening
shit and just
Yeah.
yelling at him, and then
When
you
he-
just had like the innocent little 17.
Yeah. When he was
taking
standing
it.
over him, he was coding and back and forth between
And his
him
eyes
Bruce Wayne.
and like
Yeah.
just his expression of his face and everything. And that's where I'm like, man,
That's
like he's
Batman.
just so phenomenal of an actor here, and he's just playing off of himself. Like it was just, yeah, I tip my hat to him in those scenes specifically.
And another thing, because Dylan, you won't know this because I won't say luckily. I
I'm
like
an
the
idiot?
movie
What are you gonna
enough.
say,
No,
huh?
no, no. You haven't seen the Flash that came out a couple years ago when I think you remember this twist.
I
where
should be
there's-
applauded for not going to see that movie.
It's
Okay,
not
now
an
you're
awful
making fun of
movie.
me.
It's not awful. No, I'm just saying that there's I think they show in the trailers, but there's two Barrys, right? And one of our biggest critiques was throughout that movie, it was really tough because like they'd have Ezra acting against themselves, but they would do this thing where there also was a stunt double, and they were doing that CGI like face replace tech, and it will like when I rewatch it, but then back then it'll take me out. This is one of the better versions of. Obviously, lots of camera trickery. Sometimes it's even easier. Sometimes they make it. That's the problem with big CGI movies. They overthink it. If you just set a camera in the room and you have a halfway point, they don't cross it. You're kind of set. You just don't have to do anything. But I have to say, it's like one of the best examples of recent times of making a clone, twin, double, whatever it may be, and it feeling completely natural. Where, like I said, I think that's the biggest thing I jumped to as far as the recent thing we've done on the podcast, where it's two people. It's like, oh, this doesn't feel like it's two people because like the acting's fine, but this is a computer generated version of Ezra. This is like, I'm sure there's a couple times where it is a Pattinson face put on somebody, but for the most part, I think they used it very sparingly and they did it very well. So I
Yeah.
didn't take me out at all on top grades to whoever
And-
was doing that. So
And I mean, it's huge credit to, Pattison and obviously the whole crew here where, at one point, like jokingly, Nasha does write 17 and 18 on their chest in lipstick, which is, for her to remember as a character. But like, you don't even really need that because like just the mannerisms, just the posture, the pose, and then obviously when they're actually speaking as well. Like at no point was I ever confused at which one was which. And I think that's just, yeah, like they don't even show the numbers for very long in the movie, right? Before they put their suit back on. And it just like that's so great that there's not one scene was I confused about who was who, because that's not what this movie's about. It's not supposed to be like a mystery on which one's which. It's not like a bluffing game in that way. So
yeah.
That can't be easy, and they freaking nailed it. So kudos to them.
Absolutely. Hopefully we have a similar, thing with Sinners. another
Oh yeah.
same
Right.
actor bouncing off of themselves.
Dude, I don't know why I got like 7 trailers before this movie. I was like, get to the freaking movie. There's so many, but the Sinners one, it was good to watch that.
Oh,
I was happy, or I was not happy I got that one because I'd heard it spoiled a lot, and then we got that trailer, and I was like, oh, so I see what people were talking about. But yeah, there you go. You got a year. Even though I don't think, I think the difference isn't going to be as crass here with these two, with the
Right.
17, 18 compared to the twins and everything
Yeah.
like that. So, which is funny because, and that's where I wasn't sure where we were going to go completely. We didn't get to see, he talks about, and sorry, what's the female love interest is again?
Nasha.
The lead, Nasha. He talks about how she has told him the differences between the Mickeys, but I feel like we didn't get to see that. This is not a critique. I'm just saying about why I was wondering what was going on with 18, because it's just like, okay, we've heard they're a little bit different, but really we just see them die, right? So we're not getting to spend much time with them. So in 18, that's why it's like, okay, is this something where eventually you've cooked too many times that you're starting to go a little loop, because they set up that guy was the killer that was the multiples. Now, he could have just been a killer in general, right? And been a bad guy. But just because they had set up earlier this guy kind of going a little loopy, and now we had 18. And for a little bit, we didn't, they were trying to kill each other, and then 18's off screen for a bit. I didn't think he was going to be like killing the co-lead or anything like that. But yeah, I found that was a good tension dynamic to do in the middle portion when we met 18. He was a little more heated than I probably think the other Mickeys were. So
I also like that wasn't something that was just like explicitly. There wasn't like exposition. There wasn't some character like dumping why exactly they're different. But to me, it just comes down to like what is something that is funny overall. Like, well, the theme of this in general is that like the leadership is super incompetent. Obviously, like the president guy is very much like a Trump type guy, but then also all the scientists on this ship are fucking idiots. They're just like playing games. They're constantly forgetting about the thing. And like to explain why their memories are different, there's literally a shot of one of them like tripping on one of the cords that's putting his memories into his head. And it's like, well, yeah, if that's not plugged in, then obviously his brain is going to be different than it has been before because you're not copying the same person anymore. So I like that they didn't really have to explain that. They just kind of showed it in a couple scenes. And then there was that one exception to the scientist people. There was that one girl who was actually like good and trying to help out, and then all the other ones were just idiots or like schmoozers. And I also thought that was like really fun and against type for this genre too. I feel like usually the scientists in these type of movies are very boring. They're very like just matter of fact. They're like classic nerdy types, and I think it was fun that they did something a little bit different here as well.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure what the scientist, because we had the lady that was a nicer that made the translator and everything, but then there was like the main scientist guy that didn't necessarily feel like a bad person, but kind of felt like he was in the middle. Like he's not going to be the hero play, but he's also not wanting to do some of these things. But then he's still just spouting off science in a funny way. So yeah, that's what I like. Kind of. For the most part, up until the third act, you don't know where all the characters are. Like even the camera guy for a while, I had my suspicions because he was going so hard on Mark Ruffalo. I'm like, okay, especially when he wanted to be out the battlefield. I'm like, okay, this is when we get the baby face turn here. But that's what I like. Like really, up until the last 20 minutes, there's multiple characters that don't, show their cards till then. And even if you have an idea where they're going, you don't know for sure because like even the camera guy, he's played it in like a very parody sort of way where he could just be an over the top camera guy, right? That wants to get a shot, wants to get the
like
news.
The religious guy.
Yeah, he was filming. Yeah, Ruffalo the whole time. He had the lip piercing. Yeah, I guess that's what I'm calling the camera guy because he's always in the background, like tell him, "Oh, do this," and like you're gonna make your speech.
Yeah,
And
he's
I'm
like
shoot you from up
propaganda
here.
machine guy.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like I thought because he was especially in the second
type.
act. Yeah, but I thought he'd turn, but at the same time you go, okay, that could just be the type of character he'd be. So
Yeah, I agree with you guys to an extent. I feel like for me, the one, like I don't need an explanation of everyone's motives throughout the whole film. It makes it fun, not knowing exactly what's going on. Like how you already highlighted with the scientists. Like it seems like the Dorothy, like that was her name. Like the one chick that was actually somewhat like respectful to Mickey and like kind of feeling bad for her. But like at the end of the day, like she's still doing the science experiments and like
Right.
she's probably not losing sleep over it. Like she is a scientist and she just sees it as an experiment that way. The one that kind of like I don't know, it didn't sit with me the best was when we have like the security force just like be the good guys like at the end. It just seemed like really convenient and easy for it's like, well, actually we were investigating them the whole time and yeah, it just seemed really, again, like a very Act 3 sort of thing. Like, well, this is how we resolve this, and it just seemed a little bit rushed for me there. But all the other ones, I think I felt fine with for the most part.
I could see that being someone's like criticism of this movie is that it obviously has, as we mentioned, like all sorts of social commentary on it, and this movie actually takes a very hopeful spin on it, opposed to a lot of other movies in the genre, even like things that Bong Joon-ho has done before, in a way that I thought was quite interesting. But yeah, I guess that's like kind of leads into that too. So I don't know, interesting.
what about you, Taylor?
Oh, we covered a lot of ground.
That's what I'm throwing to you before you
Goodness
get left
me.
in the dust.
You guys highlighted a lot of really good points. I think like just having the differentiation between the two Mickeys, their environments do a great job at kind of not amplifying, but identifying which one's which. Because you have the small, quiet and like mumbling kind of Mickey 17, and it's those scenarios where he's out on the outside of the spaceship doing repairs. They're like, okay, you're gonna start to feel a little bit burning because you're gonna get radioactively like fried here beyond, and you're gonna die in about 10 minutes. And he's just like, oh, okay. And it's just like, oh, we're just rolling with it.
That's what he
And
signed up for, man. He
That's
knows.
what he signed up for. Yeah. So then it's just those situations where they're not going to tell him he's really going to die until like, okay, now he's in a situation where he's going to die. You got 10 minutes. Oh, maybe you got 15. Isn't that nice? And so then you have 18 that comes along. And I didn't get the sense that 18 would have been any different. To me, it felt like he would be in those situations where he'd die and would get copied, and that he would face it. He would die and he would get copied. But obviously, you don't see that because he's trying to kill 17 and keep the natural order of things going on where the no multiples. So you also have just you have this situation of Mickey 17 being presented with death and self-reflecting and all this kind of stuff. And then you have, I think it's just the confinement and the stupidity of other people that just really makes 18 kind of pop. And again, he'll see something on TV of Marshall and just lose his shit, just wants to go and like execute
We
him.
should kill that guy.
We should kill that guy. Yeah. When he's talking about like Steven Yeun about just the oxy and whatnot, and then you get, oh, what was it? It was this cracked me up because when Mickey 17 had the steak, and then the scientist you were talking about, Travis, I feel like he was definitely just a bad guy because he's like, oh yeah, I put some kind of accelerator thing or something in there, and Mickey's
Sort of
just
hormone.
Mickey's just puking up everywhere, and just that whole dynamic was really funny and brutal when
Also,
they're
I
trying
don't
to like
think they
kill
cooked
him.
that steak, man. That was less than
Yeah, pretty
blue
soft.
rare.
3D printed steak.
That
That's
thing
what
was
it
still
but,
beaten.
like, it's better than what he's getting out there.
It'd be
Like,
more
it's,
like
very
I think a
crusty.
flavoring.
It's puking.
Like he was puking because they put something in. That food they're getting out there is like dust particles. Like he dropped on the ground, it's like gone. It's literally just protein that is, And like I do get the point what you said too of like him doing that, but at the same time he is just a scientist, right? So I think in the way that, because obviously Bong's done this with other movies as well, it's the same way as like, does the scientist that do really bad things to the animal that helps our culture, is that person a bad person? Because like near the end, he's not like joining Marshall or he's not going against the other scientists. He's like, oh well, we could do this, we could do that. So it's like there's
Well,
never
that's
a time
true.
where
He's
he
got
was like,
free reign.
yeah, but there's never a time he did anything like that was not in the name of science. Like that team, they never were like, oh, I did this just because like I didn't like this Mickey. It's like, well, no, we did this because it felt like he wanted to try out the painkiller, really. He's like, oh, we've modified this thing now. I can't remember. It was like the Purple Joe or something like that, right?
Yeah,
And
something like
that so that's why I think he's trying. I think that's why he was smart to do that with scientists, because we're in a gray area all the time, right? Because there's so many products that get tested on animals. Mickey in 17, this situation is the animal. It's just a person, so that's why we could feel more bad, because it's like a living, breathing, hey, I can talk, but it's like, hundreds of people do this every day for their job, but then they go home and they're just like, oh, well, I did this to a pig and I did this to a monkey and yada, 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 but they're not a bad person, but they might be doing these things that aren't like kind of unholy. So that's what I appreciated, that there's layers to them, but they never got too mustache twirly. Like they weren't doing it because like, oh, I love torturing Mickey. Like that's definitely Marshall.
Like the guy that they
and
showed, right? Like the earlier scientist. That was like a fucking Jack the Ripper type
right,
guy.
at the restaurant. Yes.
Yeah. Something that I really liked about that aspect of it, of like, they're helping humanity, but it's still like fucking just torturing this man, can never die. Like, this is like a fate worse than death is just the fact that it is outlawed, but they're able to do it because they're in space, and it's just kind of like international waters in that regard. And of course you have like the Kenneth Walker speech. It's like, it'll be carefully monitored, it'll be for the right of humanity on my voyage to Niflheim. And I was laughing anytime that guy speaks. But I just the fact that they went through the effort of at least explaining it that way, so it is gray area science, but it's also they're in uncharted territories, so they kind of get free reign with that. He also like signed the documents. They asked him like, did you read the whole thing? Oh yeah, of course I did. And then the narrator, I probably should have read it.
Yeah. But I mean, also like the scientists, and as we saw like back on Earth, like no one is necessarily qualified for any of the positions they got. Like Steven Yeun's character learned how to fly like a couple weeks ago, and then he got hired as like the pilot for this. Like people were just doing whatever they could or lying on their resumes and stuff to get on the ship in the first place. So I'm sure when most of those people even started, like Dorothy, she was probably a legit scientist, but everyone else, they might have been like random people who just really wanted to get off Earth and they just lied to get onto that
sure.
ship.
And
Yeah.
it's not like lie, but it's also not like Marshall's opposed to picking people that aren't the best at their job, right?
Well, he's clearly
even-
not the best of his
that-
job.
right?
He lost
Like,
the election twice in a row, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. As far as like he is the example of like the people he wants to lead per se in multiple ways. Like anytime, like the first speech at the beginning, and obviously you see some highlights, but when it's on the ship and he's talking about how they're gonna like take sex away and like all this stuff, but then when we get to Nepal, I'm like the most sex positive country or world you've ever imagined, sex all the
Let
time
us
and everything.
fuck.
Yeah, and I love like every couple minutes he like leans in and talks to Toni Collette and she like reaffirms them and everything. And yeah, it's not 100%, but like it's very much a Trump, you know, uh, interpretation and with the hair, the teeth. He even says many like mannerisms like him.
Yeah.
The Toni Collette thing, I'm trying to figure out more history wise. Like it bugged me that I couldn't get there because that's not like a comparison to those two because that's not the way Trump's wife acts and that she's very separate. So
I
I've
think
been
Bong
trying to-
just saw her in Knives Out and was like, I want that role.
Yeah.
that could be it too. That could be it too. So that's why I'm trying to track where that character, what the inspiration is. So I'll be excited for people to talk about that later. But no, Ruffalo, as we talked about, was great. And even then the speech later on when he's talking about, it's like it's not a speech. It's at the dinner when they have the other like agent there, whatever cop, and he's talking about gonna make it the pure all white
Yeah.
harmony country, and oh my goodness, it's just he just nails that stuff. It's kind of scary how good he is at it. So
How did you guys feel about Kai, is that girl's name, who like, made the tea for Mickey 17 and almost kind of got with him? That was the one character that I felt like a little unresolved with by the end of it. Like at the very end in the,
Yeah.
I don't know what, the ceremony when they blow up the machine, she like got promoted or something like that. But I felt like maybe in Act 3, there should have been something else for her, given that she got like a lot of content earlier than that. How do you guys feel about that character?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It was one where I think she was being set up and like in a certain way where she was at the dinner. They even showed her before that, even just interacting with Mickey and I can't remember the lady that perished in the cave. Should have been Mickey, but was a friend of hers. It just seemed like she was going to be a part of the crew going forward, and then she's just like non-existent until the end meeting there, and makes me think like maybe they had a certain idea of what they want to do with the character, and then they just kind of cut that out. So definitely felt a little bit unresolved, and I did like her scenes. I like her scenes with
Yeah, good
Mickey. I like her
performance.
scenes with Nasha. And I think just that section of the film, I wanted a little bit more of it. Like it is a long film. It's over 2 and however many hours. But I still it was over 2 hours. It was I
said
guess
2 and how many?
I guess I
hours?
rephrase. Yeah.
How many
I
minutes? It's like,
misspoke.
I think it's like 220, something like that.
Yeah. But like I still wanted a little bit more in that section of the film. Like I wanted more of Mickey 17 and 18 like interacting like on the ship like that, or even just maybe more moments of them interchanging a little bit more. But that's I don't think it would really change too much of the film. So
Yeah, I think that's for me one of my critiques is it's doing so much that there's a few things like even stuff I'd like a little bit more of Steven Yeun to do that. It just feels like
Yeah.
that character would come in and out at times. Even then, too, it just wasn't because it felt like almost once they got up on the ship when Passon was narrating, I felt like they really had nothing to do with each other. Like when Stephen Young like is talking to him at the beginning of the movie, it feels like they don't really know each other. But then we flash back to they are criminals together. They got here together. They interact multiple times. So I could never gauge their type of relationship. Even then, like at one point, 17 refers to him as their good friend. I know he's kind of like a loser, but he's also not like completely dumb. And it's in the moment where like Stephen Young's done multiple bad things. So I was wanting more there. Yeah. What was her name? Kay or Kai? You said it was
Kai.
Yeah. That for me was one where I didn't know like that. You could probably just take it all out. I don't think it actually served any purpose. Even too when the critter comes out of their whole what is the Greystone or whatever
Black
what-
Diamond.
thing.
yeah. So when that comes out and then all this stuff's going on and she joins the squad and just shooting this creature, it felt like they're kind of making her have some facial features to be like she's if she has to pick between the friends and the Marshall squad, it's the Marshall squad. And it's like,
Yeah.
screw you guys. And then she is with everybody. And it was odd because at the beginning of the movie they were setting up that Mickey is attracted to her, and I thought that was going to go more down because there's a point where she sits beside him, and then Naomi sits down and gives him this big kiss in front of her, kind of like to show, hey, no, like he's my guy. And then later on, she tries to make the move, and Mickey doesn't do it. It was. That's why I thought, okay, when they were having that conversation down at the stairwell, I'm like, oh, now I get it. That maybe 17 is starting to grow affection for her, but he doesn't want to break it off with her or with Naomi. But then you got 18. So that's where there's just a couple plot lines. Even the one minor thing, this might get cleared up on a rewatch, was when they said, like, okay, they left the planet to get away from this guy. How is this guy like sending someone up to the ship to get them? Like, did he just get on the ship? Like, has he been there the whole time? Like, that stuff for me wasn't. The associate that was for the bar torture guy. I was like, I don't know.
For Darius.
Yeah,
He would have
so-
had to have been on the ship the whole time because it's over a 4-year journey.
And that's just like feels odd. They've been on this journey for 4 years and now he's collecting. Like, there's just a few things that nothing bad, but they pile up to where it's like, okay, like it's spoil, like it's not a perfect score for me. And that's where it's like, okay, maybe I'll rewatch, but there's a few storylines like hers that I needed a little bit more from. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Taylor?
I had envisioned it going that way with the ending where, okay, Mickey 17 is with Kai and then 18 is with Nasha. And I totally would have been okay with that. That's an ending I would have really loved because I would have loved to have had both those Mickeys together. But I'm still happy with what we got, even though I maybe prefer, I have to sit on it. I might prefer that alternative ending because I enjoyed the friendship between Mickey and Kai. I thought it was just nice, and I feel like they had more similarities between than Nasha and Mickey 17. Mickey 18 and Nasha definitely were more in sync. But then you get this retrospective flashback where you really see that bond of how much Nasha really cares about Mickey, and she's the only one that's just there while he's going through. Like, just 3 copies of him are dying from this fucking parasitic virus that's airborne on this planet. While they develop like a vaccine for it, and it was really powerful. So I can really see why they have that connection, and that's where again I find it really humbling because Mickey 17, even though this other woman is kind of coming on to him, he's like, no, like I understand what I have with Nasha, and I care about her, and he's just a good guy. He's a really, really good guy, and he didn't want 18 to kill a marshal, anything like that. So I think what I'm getting at is that I would have been okay with either or for those endings, but I prefer the one where 18 is still alive because I liked his relationship as well. With that whole Black Diamond scene where they're cutting it open and he's giving his speech, the aliens that jumped out, the creepers, the suits, the biohazard suits that the scientists quickly put on, they looked exactly like what the quarantine guys wore from Monsters Inc. If you look at the suits, like with the backpack,
2019.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, these look like the Monsters Inc. hazmat team guys. It's hilarious.
Mickey 17, you didn't on in your paperwork. She would fit great there. She'd fit in like a cog in the wheel there. Yeah, Roz would be great. Yeah.
Oh, and one more thing too, that scene when Mickey 17 is kissing Nasha and 18 just starts playing with his hair, with 17's hair. And
Man,
it was so fucking funny.
All that stuff.
just looking at him like, oh my god, it's so funny. Yeah, you guys quickly mentioned Stephen Yeun in there. I love Stephen Yeun in these types of roles. It's different than what his character was in Nope, but like it's still very like charismatic at times, and like
Little beefish.
Like
Well,
very.
I think they're kind of similar though, like a friendly almost dude
I think-
bro at time that's an asshole, right? Like they all are assholes, and it's funny because like he got popular off Glenn, who was like the most nicest character.
That's
in
what I
the
was gonna
world,
say. Is
right?
like whenever I think of Stephen Yeun, I think of the first time I've seen him, which would have been in Walking Dead, and he's just so like timid and quiet and like nice guy. Whereas this, it's just like I don't know. I like to see him doing a wider range of a role, and just all of the shots of him just like with this like little sleazy smile, and he very much treats Mickey as he's not a good friend of Mickey at all. Like, you mind if I take this flamethrower? I'm like, dude, you could kill him right here. You could just end his misery. But okay, see you later, Mickey. Sorry, can't get down to you. You know, the rope only goes so far. Just all those moments when he's like I'll call it like fake crying at the end. I saw tears, but it seems like he wiped them away pretty quickly when he was committing to just chainsawing his friend there. It's yeah, he's a bit of a sleaze ball, but I enjoyed the performance nonetheless.
Yeah, Nasha just like calling out his bullshit there was great, and then I mean, just maybe one of the best scenes in the movie is just when she calls out the president guy in the like boiler room thing. That whole speech is so great. I think it was like really, it was a great move to give that speech to her because like for Mickey 18, he's too much of a nihilist to do something like that. 17's too much of a doofus, so like she was kind of the perfect character to go for it, and like performance wise, just absolutely crushed it. And then like has to have that rope thing in her mouth and then does like the jumping flying like Scarjo like black
Head
widow
scissors,
kick
yeah.
on Tony Collette, like just such an amazing character. But yeah, I love that she just constantly called out the bullshit. I think that's like back to like the kind of hopeful turnout to this, and even what you were saying earlier, Kirkland, of like maybe not loving how like some of these whatever like the combat people like the guards, how they kind of just had this whole plot all along. But I think that's kind of just the idea of this movie, is that like people just got to stand up for what they believe in and speak out and things like that. And I feel like they kind of try to tackle that from a few different directions. Obviously, like the scientist people as well, the guard people, and then like I guess she was also a guard, but even just more of the characters that we know. And Mickey, I guess he's kind of just like he's just like an empathy machine. All he just doesn't know how to like vocalize anything properly, so he just kind of stumbles through stuff. But obviously, he has like a good heart, and so people surround him in those ways and want to lift him up and all that. So. Yeah, I think that's like a just a good recurring theme. But yeah, like her performance was so good, so good.
Yeah, no, I liked. Oh God, I forgot my train of thought there. You said something, then you said something else. So anywhere to go? I'll let you
No,
know.
I want to know what you were gonna say there, Travis.
Yeah, let's cycle back to that one. I'll mention this that I said in my non-spoilers. The funniest foreshadow I think I've like ever seen. I love the C3, the bring the baby thing. Like just what is this innocuous scene of them looking at this like really, I don't know if they made that animation, if that was the company's animation. I couldn't quite tell. I think it was
It looked
probably
like
the
they were
company's
drawing
animation.
it, right? Or were they just adding like the genitalia? Because they were
I'm not
drawing
sure
on it.
because I thought the idea was like the bring the baby thing was like from the company. That was like their plan. Is okay, we're gonna get to the planet, and then like we want to get babies out efficiently as possible. So like here's how you do it, kind of thing. But like what is just some goofy little scene, pays off like an hour and a half later in like the climax of the movie, which is like the most ridiculous. There's no way they would have even remembered that conversation or that C3 was that number. It's so ridiculous, but I was just dying laughing. I think that is like one of my favorite callbacks / foreshadows in a movie. So good.
I think
Especially his
it's-
movements, right? When he's like,
Yeah.
"Here's the baby."
He's really trying to sell it.
I think it's definitely, yeah, that was a really, really good foreshadow, and I think it's fitting for them. I see it as them just as a couple, because when Mickey 18 is walking down the hall, he was even saying like, "Oh, we'll do like," I can't remember what the move was, but this certain thing, and Mickey 17 was like, "That's me and her's move," or whatever. He's just like huffing about
G6
it.
or something,
Something
it
like
sounded
that.
dirty.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I had nothing more to add.
Circle
there, so-
back.
No, I never circled back. The thought was.
You ready yet? Just kidding.
No, the thought was he'll come back tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I should have said this, but no, it's interesting with Ruffalo's character at the end there. He's still very funny, but they tried, and again, nothing bad here, but they try to give him a bit more serious notes. I love like when he got shot, he had like the cut there. So one, he like brands one Mickey to say, oh yeah, like I know which one's which, but it's kind of like a oh screw you, like I can do this too. Colette like praises him very quickly. Oh yeah, such a good job. But he has this big speech here, and I'm surprised he went as far out as he did. Obviously, he had the people around him egging him on and everything like that. But they gave him like a little moment with Mickey 18 there to like he's trying to like again he's somewhat serious. So they tried to do that a couple times, but again, I felt like where my point was at the beginning with some of the humor was we'd be back on that ship and there's a lot of things going on, and some of the humor maybe didn't work completely for me in that moment because we're losing 18 and there's other stuff going on. But interesting. And I want to ask you guys about what did you feel about the dream sequence that happened, because I was very confused for however long that runtime is. Most confused I was in that movie. I'll explain why after, but see if any of you guys feel the same way as me.
Yeah, I think it was funny thinking back to Parasite, which a lot of people don't like that, spoiler for the end of Parasite here, but that it
Yes.
has a dream sequence thing that's like the ideal scenario, like in the character's head, like what would be the perfect
Yeah.
scenario. And this is kind of like the opposite of that. Like everything actually is good because movie does have a hopeful ending. But like, what if they had actually plotted all along? And I think it was really interesting because it kind of is just like once again, a commentary on just like you can take out these people in power, but if you don't, pure fix the problem completely, or like it's not a big societal shift, then there's like cut off one head and then like another head comes right up kind of thing. And I think that also is like totally fitting for those characters who constantly belittle expendables as like being less than people. These aren't real people, but like then they would somehow find a way to turn it and be like, oh, but if we did it for ourselves, we would be like saviors. We'd be like Jesus coming back again, like that whole kind of thing. And so to me, it was like, yeah, if that was the actual ending, I don't think I would like it, but I think it's like really good as just like a insidious thought in the back of Mickey or anyone else's head that like, okay, I think we're good, but like you never really know with these people and like this power and like I don't know, maybe they had another cloning machine hidden somewhere on this ship, and even though we blew up one, maybe there's another one, and maybe there is another one of them out there. So all that kind of stuff, I thought it was quite poignant. I quite liked it, but yeah, I was very confused for a couple minutes there when it was happening.
Yeah, because I was like, is there some big twist that I missed along the way? I'm trying to do that whole. Not that I ever thought he would have done like, oh, this was a whole dream, but something to that effect of like, okay, the printing machine's here. They talked about they destroyed it. What's happening? But yeah, I think I like the scene. I'm not sure about the placement of it, but I like what the scene has going for it. But it was, I think that one I need on a second watch to see how I truly feel about it. Because the first one was happening, and it's like, oh, it's just a dream. It's like, okay, didn't really enjoy this. Where I like the Parasite one, that one didn't bug me. Where I know lots of people don't like that moment. So yeah, I guess it's just kind of different strokes for different folks. But it was an interesting scene nonetheless. So
Yeah, it was a very weird shift. I was expecting some weird like we had more of us all along, and then like just a total like almost like a dark ending. Because I looked at my watch at one point. I knew it was 9. I'm like, hey, we're close to the end here, and then that played out. So I enjoyed the execution of the scene. Like it was a well shot. It was very eerie and creepy. I just think, yeah, like what you said, Travis. Like maybe the placement would have made me like it a little bit more, but who knows?
Yeah, the whole sequence that they did with that was, I did not expect it to be a dream, and I was taking it at face value, like this is the real deal, and I really thought that we were gonna get some horrible hybrid concoction because she took the tail of one of the creepers and like
Oh,
made him
God.
like drink the sauce, and I thought, so now is his DNA gonna be mixed with the creeper, and is it gonna be some weird hybrid thing coming back out of this 3D printer because it's gonna be all fucked up?
you've
I
watched
don't know what
Romulus
to
too
expect.
many times.
I
That's
know,
what you're
yeah.
doing there,
But no, it was just a dream, and yeah, just a haunting dream. And but I guess it's like he talks about having nightmares and whatnot, and this is just one of those nightmares. It definitely pulls you out of the where we're kind of, I guess, going and concluding with the story, but that's fine. It's not a huge like negation towards the film or anything like that.
I wanted to mention something you mentioned there earlier, Travis, with when the president gets shot at and then he has like the scar on his cheek. I'm wondering about like the timing of when this was filmed, because like that to me, I thought we were going to go into like a Trump comparison thing of when he got shot and like it hit his ear or didn't hit his ear, but then that kind of, in some way probably was in his favor for him getting reelected, and that's like not really what the turn was in this movie. It wasn't like, oh, I'm like a hero, I'm a savior, I went through this traumatic thing and that turned in people liking him. That's not really what happens here. So that's something I wondered if like it's probably just coincidence when they were
I think it's
filming or
just
writing this
coincidence,
movie,
yeah.
and then that happened in real life, right? Because the timing doesn't quite line up. But it was, I wondered if that was where we were going to go, but ultimately no.
Especially because I guess there could be reshoots, but remember this movie was supposed to be out last year, and
I know.
doubt
I was
there's-
thinking about the reshoots
yeah.
about that scene. I was like, "Ooh, is that something they would have redone? Because it could be quite poignant." But I
Even
don't know.
the stuff where at one point when they're talking about like the people having the power and they're throwing up their fists with the ones and everything like that, with our culture with certain figures
Right.
throwing up the the salute of a old bad age. So I think it's just one of these life funnily entertain or not entertaining, my god, imitating imitating life situation, and it's Yeah, I feel like with that, some of the things that happened with the election, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they got together really quickly, shot some stuff. I think they just got some fun, dumb luck, or just kind of, I don't know, kind of
But then
predictive,
it's like
like
so
things that
many
we've.
scenes. He like has the thing on his face. I guess you could CGI the scar, but like
Yeah,
I feel like it would be a lot of work to like change some of that stuff.
exactly.
Like
Yeah.
that.
So, and I think maybe it's just a look at how these things kind of cycle, right? There's always an idea of like, oh well, you defeat the evil, and we're gonna grow up, and like how I felt like when Obama got elected. It's like, okay, you're gonna start seeing every racist person ever go away. You're gonna go going this way, and then it's like, oh, every couple of years, every decade, something bad happens again, and it just kind of resets. And I feel like that's maybe how they got to this dumb luck stuff of like highlighting not just Trump, but there's other characters they highlight that are of bad ilk from the past, but they just kind of still find a way back. So it's like, as much as you do want to be hopeful, you kind of have to be hopeful because we're never just going to be, unfortunately, in a world of just good guys. It's not going to happen. There's no like end point where it's like, oh, everyone starts having kids, because there's always going to be some fucking asshole or some really rich terrible person or just poor terrible person that is like, look at the guys making multiples, just going around murdering homeless people for
Yeah.
some reason, which I really liked that backstory of, because when he said multiples and he was so dramatic, it's like, okay, also I understand why that's a big deal, right? Probably don't want two of you, but when there was a literal law and controversy like about that, I liked everything to the reveal of, I can't remember that guy's name, but like number 3. That was very well done, and I enjoyed that sequence.
Yeah.
When we get Terra, that's when we'll have our perfect society.
Right, Terra. I forgot
Taylor's
that's
Terra.
a
Terra 2,
GeekVerse
Terra 2.
classic. Yeah, Terra 2. Yeah, we're gonna check back up on that in the 11th year, see how buildings going.
So
Go ahead.
I was gonna go in a cloning direction here. So big aspect of
Clone
this
it.
movie, obviously, all about the cloning. And I really like just the whole details around it. It's just like a really interesting machine. I feel like they explained it in a wide enough blanket where it's like, okay, they're not getting into like the science of how this actually works, but they're saying a lot of things, that we got a lot of ingredients that, yeah, I believe that we could just get a human out out of this, throw in some science magic, and that's just the reality of how it works. They got this like funky looking brick thing that's
I
like his
love the
big hard
brick.
drive. Just cool designs all around it, and then you already was mentioning the multiples there and just how big of a thing that was, and because of that quick backstory, like you realize the severity, I think, of the situation between 18 and 17 and how they do have to keep it secret. And I think because that was explained, and then we have them both on the station, that's when I'm like, oh, this is going to be a really fun aspect of the movie now. But it is just short and sweet when they're like, I don't know, I'm not gonna say cooperating, but like just living on the ship at the same time, because right after like the bedroom scene, that's when we go into the assassination that 18 tries to pull out. So it just, I feel like it ramps up a little bit too quick there. It's going back to what I was saying earlier. I just maybe wanted a little bit more in there because it just was an interesting idea. And then the whole thing with like the love triangle of like the cloning was just like an interesting thought experiment. It's like, well, if anyone's gonna cheat on your significant other, a clone of yourself, I guess that's not that bad. But then when you're looking at it from the 17th perspective,
You would know all about
it's-
this, Kirkland.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I got
Okay.
many of
Because
none of myself though. So it's an interesting thing where it's like, it wouldn't be that bad, but when you're seeing it, it's like, fuck, that's horrible. That's my position.
Well-
Like I should be that person in those shoes.
And even 17 says that when he has him over like the heating bear or whatever, he's gonna melt him, right? And he's like, oh well, you were gonna die anyways. Why do you have a problem dying now? And he says, well, like before when I died, it was like a piece of me was going on and continuing.
Yeah.
But now there's like a splinter because the new experiences, the memories I've had now are gonna die with me in this fire. So it's almost like you're playing an old video game save file where it's like, all right, I'll go back and play. Like the one you had is corrupted. It's like, okay, you don't want to, but it's never going to be exactly the same if it's like an
Yeah.
RPG or something, right? And that's Mickey's. But for Mickey, it's not just a video game; it's his fucking life. But let's take one more ad break before we have more thoughts and final thoughts and more thoughts. We'll be right back. And we're back.
Last thing I wanted to say to close out my thoughts there is I also just liked how we had the highlight of like specifically around the murders, but then you have like the interviews in the council about people like just talking about the idea of multiples, and it's like there's one soul for one person, and then they go through of like even philosophers were having a hard time like explaining how this works, or scientists. They just have all these different parties, and yeah, they don't like the whole movie isn't about explaining that. It's just like, yeah, we don't know how to explain it, and this is
Yeah.
just how it works. So we just banned it overall. So
Because
overall, I
that's
just
not
liked how they explained the whole cloning thing.
because that's not explained in our world, right? There's people that
Yeah.
believe we're a soul. When you die, you go there, you go here, blah blah. Then there's people just like you die and you decompose. You know, there's no. We can't talk to the people that have died to be like, hey, we got a message. There is a Jesus. There is a God. There is a devil. Or like we don't have that till we're dead. We're not gonna know till our eyes close, and then it's like, oh, or they just close and it's gone. So it's like, I think that's smart to sometimes not answer those grander world questions. You know, fucking midichlorians, when it's like we can't, you know, like we like, oh, why do you believe in God so much? Oh, well, my blood's really strong, it believes in God. No, that shouldn't be what it should be. So that's why I like that method of, okay, here's the cards, here's where they lay, you just don't get to flip them, you know.
Another thing I really enjoyed is pretty simple, but just like, you know, the traumatic backstory for Mickey and a large reason of why he is the way he is. It's because as a kid he hit this button in the car, and that led to what he believes is like his mom crashing and then dying because of it. And I feel like it seems like maybe after, like, his life would have gone a completely different direction. The split like 17 and 18 in terms of
Yeah.
how his life would have gone if that moment didn't happen. And I feel like because of that he's gone through his life without really making decisions because he doesn't want to make another decision like that again. So he just bumbles through things, even bumbling through signing up to be an expendable, one of the worst things anyone could do. And so I think it was a nice cathartic moment that at the end of the movie, like you kind of get the two moments. Mickey 18 he presses the button to sacrifice himself for the greater good and solve that whole problem. And then 17 gets the cathartic moment to hit the button to destroy the cloning thing, so he can now just continue his life in a normal way. And he still has guilt about that because he's just such an empathetic character. But I really like that very simple imagery of like the idea of making a choice, just like with literally just clicking a button, is really just a nice simplified, boiled down version of like that big sort of idea. So I really liked the visual of that.
And I have to wait for a rewatch or for other people's theories because if there's something there, I'm not smart enough to catch it. But the scientist that gets him set up for the program, his hair is identical to his mom, and they do a shot when he's walking behind her. There's a shot just behind her head. She has the ginger hair, auburn hair, and then while he's talking like, oh, well, when I was a kid, and then it switches, and it's a woman with auburn hair holding him. I don't know if that's just to get, because he talks about how he likes her smell and trusts her, everything like that. I don't know if it's just as simple as that, as something like the hair is setting him off to be like, okay, I can trust this woman that's going to clone my body. But I imagine there's probably more Bong that I haven't just figured out yet. But they have their hair is like, and that's where that was messing with me at the beginning. And I'm like, okay, why does this woman, the scientist and his mom, have the same hair? And especially because it didn't show the mom's face. That's where I was for a while. I was like, oh fuck, is there something more sinister here? Nothing at all happened there, but they definitely did play around with that hair, and I don't know the full answer yet. So
I just took it as like that's what triggered the nostalgic memory.
yeah, and it could be
then,
just that. Yeah,
yeah, and it's like such a gut shot where he has this memory it's like refreshed with whatever they give him to like just. So it's like that fresh, like as if his mom just died. So obviously he's like broken. He's in tears. And then the character that triggered those memories like walks in with a gun and is like, "No, shoot yourself in the head."
Yeah.
It's just like, holy fuck, like yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else I got for notes. I guess one quick note. I really enjoyed the sequence when Mickey and Timo are just like in the streets, and then they, you know, kind of getting caught by these group. One, just the visual of that, like the gangster guy like walking, throwing the thing that like rolls down the hill and shocks them was cool. But then
That
just
was
like
cool. Yeah.
being in the bar and you have like the old creepy guy who runs this thing just eating his meal while the other guy's like just dumping exposition. There's people just getting tortured and they're stealing shoes off these bodies. It was just, once again, so absurd, and like could have been a boring backstory scene, is instead this like very stylish sequence. So yeah, just I feel like every scene there was so much care and like also budget put into it, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I love those whatever roller weapons were that they were, just tracking them down, shocking them. Cool stuff.
I really like the creature designs. I shouted out earlier with the comparison Nazca, Valley of the Winds. Everybody go watch some Studio Ghibli movies. Choose any of them. They're phenomenal. But yeah, I just, the way that they're able, I haven't seen Okja. I imagine it's the same, where like he's just able to make this creepy alien looking thing just just I feel remorse for it, and I just feel so sad when it's like getting tortured and pricked and like on the fish hook going down the incinerator. And I didn't realize that they had eyes too until like later on in the film. I'm like, oh my god, like you can actually like look right into them. And then of course when they do the head explosion thing, it's explained it was just kind of a bluff, but fuck, it was sure convincing when they're all doing it in unison. And just really cool, yeah, designs of the character. Again, I'm 100% convinced it was strongly inspired by Nausicaa Valley of the Winds. I'm gonna keep shouting out that
2 months later.
keep shouting out that
Studio
movie.
Ghibli sues Warner Brothers for Mickey 17. Well, we listened to this podcast, this review. This guy brought up a movie.
He just kept
and we're
highlighting it.
yeah, and we're like, fuck, we did a side by side. Yeah, and then Bong goes bankrupt, never makes a movie ever again because of Kirkland.
I hope he remembers me for that.
Yeah,
But no,
we'll
I
recruit him. We'll give him a job at GeekVerse Studios. Do whatever
You
you
could be
want
our
with
intern,
our 10
you know.
bucks.
You'll have to compete with us, Bubs, though. Be the guy in the chair. But I also just like their like strategic. There's like strategic diversion, I guess, where they just all surround like the main one, and they're just making these like little cyclones. And it's also just comedic when you have fucking Mark Ruffalo's character like, it's that one, shoot that one, and then it just like dissipates. Like, no, you idiot, that's not the one. Oh, just yeah. Kenneth Walker, whatever his name was, Mark Ruffalo was just fantastic. I feel like 80+% of all of his scenes, I just kept chuckling and laughing, and like the fake teeth they gave him, the tan, everything was just
The Boba Fett look he was rocking there. That's what came to my mind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
He
yeah.
wants to be
Oh,
the
yeah.
Daiju for Niflheim.
Yeah, I thought all that was really good. It was smart to, once again, everything in this movie I feel like has some social commentary angle to it, but like whether it's just racism or like colonialism, but like using straight up like these, what are, you know, if you read a book by its cover, like it's just a very nasty looking bug thing, you kind of make a lot of assumptions about what it is, but instead to approach the situation from empathy, which of course Mickey does naturally, and then he kind of has to like relay that information to everyone else. And then obviously when you actually get the translator, which I love how quickly they make the translator, like they make it in like 20 minutes, it feels like, which is insane. But Dorothy, you know, pretty good scientist and all that. So no, I think that was all really smart. And I'm surprised how much screen time those bugs got, considering at the start of the movie, I thought it'd just be like, oh, this is just going to be one of the many funny deaths that Mickey gets, but instead it's like a huge plot point, big character, and like they actually have names and characters and all this stuff around them. So yeah, definitely a big surprise. And yeah, I think the CGI looked great the whole way through. There was never a point when I was like taken out of it. Somehow it was still like grounded and realistic, even though it was clearly absurd, especially when they're doing the cyclone stuff that you were mentioning there. I didn't know if they were about, like, if they were summoning like a giant one. I thought that's what was about to happen, like a dune sandworm situation.
I was also getting Major Plague Tale vibes, Dylan, from just like the swarms
definitely.
of them, especially when they're making like the big, like, cyclones.
From a zoomed out, they do kind of look like rats. So
Yeah.
and they have the tails, so it makes sense.
During the dinner sequence there, when they're basically like presenting Kai with this new opportunity for her career on Niflheim, I found I don't need a lot more backstory, even though I'm interested in it, because I think it just maybe in some other context they could highlight, but in this movie I think it was just the right amount. But anyways, he was talking about what he wants the planet to be, and I said that Marshall was talking about what the planet is going to be in its future. I'm pretty sure he highlighted what a few other colony planets were doing and what they were up to, and just how he was kind of like shitting on them and their way of life. And for me, it gave me a brief kind of vibe like this feels like a Fallout scenario where everyone's just picking a planet, going to it, and just doing their own type of colonization society kind of thing. And it's like an experiment, right? They're all doing their own different things. And I like that concept. I think it's kind of cool because, like, hypothetically, I'm just headcanoning this. You have this colony set up on Niflheim, and what, like 200 years down the road, they turn into this cult-like fanatical Aryan society, and like you could just go to war against regular humanity and Earth. It's like a space war in the future. I don't know. It's just I was just headcanoning cool different scenarios just based on the fact that you have humans just breaking off, abandoning their predecessing society, and just starting new. It's just that's total fucking
There's
chaos.
pitch for Terra 2 right now.
Yeah.
He's taking
Well,
notes the whole
It could be
movie.
different here.
I love that it just totally fits with like the guy, you know, the president character who picks this planet, which is like seemingly snowy everywhere, and like I don't know how you're gonna grow crops well, but like also the atmosphere just like kills you on contact, and like obviously they have the the expendable program and all that, but it's like like they have the tech to go there, they have the tech to clone people, but they don't have the like a freaking telescope and stuff to like determine if this planet is habitable before they go there in the first place. It's just like shows once again the level of incompetence. They're like where we're at right now as humankind, we have like determined some habitable planets. They're just
Yeah.
too far away to really be conceivable. But like the fact that they just go to this hellscape is hilarious.
I'm picking Jupiter. That's where we're going for my planet.
Okay.
Is that a proven
doable.
one that we could live on? That's too
Absolutely
far?
not. No, it's
Okay.
a gas
No.
giant.
I think
You'll die.
it's the
horrible.
moons. No, what is it? Jupiter's moons? I think it.
Titan, I think, is the moon.
Titan,
That's
yeah,
where,
the moons are
that
more
I think
guy-
it's Saturn.
habitable.
Dylan just said that. I got that excited because I've not followed any of that. Once they kicked Pluto as a planet for a while, I'm like, oh, I'm done with all the NASA people. I know.
Well, none of them are anywhere close, so don't get too excited.
Yeah, but
we're
at
not,
some
making it to them
At
realistically.
some point, they have 100 years from now, there's gonna be some rockets, some new auction tanks that
yeah.
can get us there, right?
We'll get there.
You want to go to
Wait,
Pluto?
Travis.
You have like a personal offense that Pluto is no longer a planet?
Well, yeah, I liked Pluto. Didn't say I want to go to Pluto, but this is bread and
It still
butter.
exists.
Pluto.
You can still like it.
Still exists.
not a
Did you
planet,
see
though.
Did you see the high res photos of it with the heart? It's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
let's bread and butter. Let's
That's old
circle
news,
back to
Taylor.
the
Come on,
movie.
it's like 12 years ago.
I got
I'm
nothing else.
noteless.
Circle back. What you got? The Travis?
Yeah. I'm curious what Travis.
If we're talking about planets, I can be a whole hour. I'm down to have that conversation about us moving the planets, which planets we go to, stuff like that. That sounds like a great bread and butter. I'll start off by great time, great movie. Bong does again. I'm excited to see what he does next. This is probably going to be the biggest budget he has for a while because I think this movie will do relatively well. But it's a weirder movie. I could pitch this to everybody, right? It's not so weird where I don't think it's like, speaking of Mark Ruffalo, like a Poor Things where I go like, oh, I know multiple people that this isn't for you. I don't think it's that. I think there's different type of concepts that might not be up people's tree, but I think he does a great job. And I think he said he's trying to do some like horror movie about a killer on a subway or something. So I don't know. I will be.
Is it one of the
watching-
clones from this movie who invents the
Ooh.
cloning
I don't,
program?
I don't want to spoil it.
Get Mark
but,
Ruffalo in there. I don't care who else is in there.
Yeah. So now in like kind of waiting, I got to officially go back and start taking off the movies he's done in the past that
Mhm,
are
me
all
too.
foreign because I've heard great things about many other ones. But yeah, I'm a 8.75 here. Couldn't quite get it to a 9 just because, like I said, mostly the back half stuff. I have some questions, but just the pacing felt just a little bit off. Maybe I will feel differently about it as we go along, but I imagine, who knows, we could see, but I imagine come next January, February, we'll be talking about this movie again in multiple Golden Geeks categories. Ruffalo, he didn't win for Poor Things, but maybe he can pull it out this time, because he's great. And yeah, I'm very excited to see all these actors, what they do, what Bong does. So yeah, 8.75 for me.
I am going to give this a 17 out of 17.
Nice.
A perfect score.
Nice.
Hell
It's
yes.
great. Love it.
Taylor, you go next.
I am thinking I'm going to give this. The only con I really have is just the longevity of just that third act, and just because that really did pull me out a little bit.
But don't worry, just like Romulus, when we get to Golden Geeks, now I've revisited great third act.
Well, Romulus was that's different because of the little alien thing going on there. This I really like this movie. I think it's fun. I like that we got the creepers, their intelligence, and just the co-habitual kind of relationship post the build up to the war and all that, and just so much going on with this movie that I was not expecting. And it was a good time. It was a humble story. It was a great narrative, and it was just mixed with dark humor, dark comedy that just works in a innocent kind of light. And I think that this movie will it'll definitely leave a very strong mark on the film industry, and I hope that other directors can get kind of inspired by this, and other story writers can kind of see this and think of ways to do more original content like this, because it's a good.
I don't think
it's
it's
a good time.
that. I think they want to. The problem is many people can't go and win 3 Oscars, and then they're like, yeah, here's a blank check. Like, you gotta
Well,
get
they should.
what? Okay.
Go
Hear
win
that,
some
Phil?
Oscars,
That
you
easy.
losers.
Yeah, go
Just,
win those.
just win
yeah.
3 Oscars.
Yeah,
Just
why
be
don't you
creative,
win Oscars?
Just be
Yeah.
original, be creative.
Yeah, don't make dumb, stupid ideas, IP ideas. Only original. Yeah,
Only good ideas. You know.
yeah.
Did you drop a number, Taylor? Or
I
did
don't
blank?
remember. I'm gonna say 9.5.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Damn.
Nice.
I should have let you go last. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. Really, really love the movie. Second rewatch, I might not feel so deterred by some of my cons in there. It's just fresh off the first watch. There's just certain things that were I don't know, hinted at with certain characters, like the Kai character. I just want a little bit more on. Already highlighted one just more 17 and 18 mess around on the ship. I'll we got the Snowpiercer show. I'll take the Mickey 17 show with just more of those two buddy copping it up or whatever the hell they're doing.
Problem is you're not getting Pattison, you're getting someone
yeah,
else.
definitely not. I think it's a lot lesser when you don't have someone to the quality of Pattinson. But there's some great actors and actresses.
I'll let Taylor do it. I'll take Mickey 17. Taylor can play both versions.
Nicolas Cage
of
or
it.
like sort of avenue.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lovely geek.
love the movie. It was great.
Well, there you go. That's it. Obviously, we got lots of stuff we're always doing, talking trailers, movie news on the newscast, whatnot. But our next big review for Movie Wise isn't until April 18th for Sinners, and Taylor won't be there for that one. But that's the next movie review. But yeah, we don't have much. Summer, we're gonna be packed. Summer, it's like every fucking week we're there. But as of right now, that is it for that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Let us know in Discord, YouTube, wherever. Messages, however you can. Let us know what you thought about it or any critiques or any questions you have about this particular review. So we thank you very much. And you promise when you hear from us next, it'll not be boring.
See you.